Hey Heartland family, Pastor Ethan here with another Walk the Path video from Sunday's message. This week we got back into the book of Matthew and we talked about Matthew chapter 9, verse 35 through chapter 10, verse 15. Intended to do the whole chapter, but didn't work out for us. We talked about, I think one of the things as we walk the path that's important to think about is something we mentioned early on in the service, is that when Jesus says the harvest is abundant but the workers are few, therefore pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into the harvest field. And then he immediately summons and calls upon the 12 disciples and says, I'm sending you out. There are times where we may be praying, God send workers into the harvest, but he may actually just be calling you into the harvest. And obviously we continue to pray that others are drawn as well, but be aware that he may be calling you. And then when we think about those who are sent into the harvest, we talked about the three different people groups, the Jewish ideologies that were represented amongst the disciples, the Zealots, the Herodians, and the Pharisees, and how they had very different worldviews and very different ideas on how to interact with the world, especially the Roman world, and how Jesus calls all of them to himself and gives them all the same commission. And I think oftentimes in our lives, we think like, oh yeah, I've got it right, and I don't, and everybody else needs to listen to me and what I have to say and have to think. And I think sometimes recognizing that Jesus calls people from all different walks of life and all different backgrounds to accomplish the same mission. And we may disagree on some things at times, but maybe that's the point. We're always being confronted with some of these things that we got to wrestle with, right? And we got to think about, how does this work? And so as we walk the path this week, maybe let your curiosity and your empathy drive some of those relationships. And Jesus' healings, everything that he did was driven by love and compassion, right? It says that he had compassion on them, for they were harassed and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. And when we look at somebody, we're driven by compassion and love. And then we look at a brother that we may disagree with on some peripheral issues. Do we look at them with compassion and understanding, or do we look at them as like, you've got it all wrong, whatever that looks like? So there's obviously, from what we talked about, there's a ton we can learn, but I think as we walk the path this week, let's focus on empathy and curiosity for what other people think and how they interact with Scripture and with the commission of Christ. All right, with that, we love you guys. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you Sunday.